I'll be able to feel this stuff coming this way.
Right. My grandma used to be like, my knees, I feel. I think she wanted to be a meteorologist.
It'll be today, yeah, for sure.
Hey there, thank you so much for joining us here at KARE 11 News at Noon. We have a lot to talk about. A weather worn day with storms expected in just a few hours.
Yeah, and I've got the latest on those missing canoeists in the Boundary Waters.
And before we get to all of that, let's take a look at what's happening right now outside. I mean, my goodness, definitely a lot darker than it was even just yesterday.
Yeah, you're right. You can see on radar there, we're in a bit of a lull at the moment. Most of the steady rain is lifted up to our north. But we will continue to track the skies as we do expect some strong to severe thunderstorms to develop later this afternoon, with the emphasis across southeastern Minnesota. Now, one thing I wanted to point out is backing things up a little bit. Notice the storms that are over eastern Nebraska right now, just outside of Omaha. That activity is expected to develop into severe thunderstorms, especially areas over Iowa. And you see the clearing that's taken place. That clearing is allowing the atmosphere to recharge from the earlier showers and thunderstorms that we saw. You can see those are pushing into southwest Wisconsin right now. But again, that sunshine is going to help to reload the atmosphere for potentially a severe weather outbreak later this afternoon and early evening. So this is timing things off, a very broad look. This is the look at the next 12 hours. If you have errands to run, things to do outside, do it within the next couple of hours, because by mid to late afternoon, those storms are going to increase in coverage, including the Twin Cities metro. And we're really focused in on southeastern Minnesota for the best chance at severe weather. That's why we have deemed today a weather warn day. The main threat for severe weather is between about 3 o'clock and 8 o'clock this evening. Large hail, damaging winds, and even a few tornadoes are in the forecast, not to mention some really heavy rainfall. We'll break down the details coming up in a few minutes, Alexis.
Ben, thank you. Severe weather already made an appearance about an hour and a half south of the Twin Cities. Take a look at this video of a reported tornado touching down in a field just north of Hayfield last night. That's about 25 miles south of Rochester. So far, there are no reports of any injuries or damage. The National Weather Service also reported large hail in the area, about an inch in diameter. So to keep track of today's weather, and really weather anytime, keep the KARE 11 weather app on hand. It has live updates and radar and custom forecasts as well whenever you want. And it's a free app on any app store. Well, we're following a developing story overseas. One person died on a flight from London to Singapore today. Singapore Airlines says the plane encountered severe turbulence because of storms. The flight was diverted to Bangkok so emergency crews could bring another injured passenger to the hospital. Data shows the plane dropped 6,000 feet over the span of 3 minutes. Well, today, bad weather is keeping planes grounded over the Boundary Waters, but the search for 2 missing canoeists continues on the ground this noon. Cece, I know you've been following this search. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so we know that we're going to get to an emotional interview in just a few minutes with the family of one of the people who were out there. But first, we're going to break down the situation a little more. The sheriff's officials say they're using airplanes, drones, and underwater robots to try and find Reese Grams and his friend. They went over Curtin Falls Saturday when another man in their group needed help. We talked with Reese's wife, who tells us he goes up to Curtin Falls every year to go fishing. She went on to say that he's a good man and she needs him to come home.
Whoever you pray to, especially Jesus, that's what Reese and his friend would want you to do right now, is just pray for them.
Yeah, really tough. Both canoes were recovered, but the life jackets weren't. Reese's wife is hanging on to that thread of hope. Law enforcement officials say crews will camp in the area so they can continue their search for the men. And as the search continues, there are campsites, lakes, and portages closed in that area through tomorrow. Of course, this is developing, but we'll update you with the latest on air and at KARE11.com. But developing in super sad situation right now.
And very helpful to hear from one of the wives as well. Cece, thank you. Well, we have breaking news in the criminal trial of Donald Trump. A little more than 2 hours ago, the defense rested its case without the former president's testimony. Closing arguments are on hold until May 28th. This comes a day after chaos in the courtroom when the judge nearly kicked a witness off the stand. Robert Costello, a former federal prosecutor, was called by the defense to rebut the testimony of Michael Cohen. It was Costello's demeanor, audible muttering, and alleged eye rolling that caused the judge to clear the courtroom to reprimand him. Well, today we could be seeing who will show up on the ballots on the next state, local, and federal elections. The filing period for candidate hopefuls opens today, and it's open for just over 2 weeks and comes just after the GOP convention, where leaders discussed who will face Senator Amy Klobuchar in the next election. Well, now that the legislative session has ended, a pile of newly passed bills are waiting to be signed into law by Governor Walz. In the last 24 hours, Governor Walz signed a bill cracking down on junk fees, requiring companies to be more upfront about the pricing. He's also expected to sign a bill setting minimum pay for Uber and Lyft drivers. Other items that passed include $30 million in funding for EMS in rural areas. However, lawmakers ran out of time before the session ended to vote on the Equal Rights Amendment, the bonding bill, and sports betting. The governor says there will not be a special session. Well, days of mourning are underway in Iran following the deaths of the president and other Iranian officials killed in a helicopter crash. So take a look at this new video showing huge numbers of people lining the streets as a truck carries their bodies to funerals. As many mourn, small celebrations are being held among protesters who have pushed against the Iranian government in favor of women's rights. Well, we're keeping an eye on a wildfire burning in Arizona. The Wildcat Fire has already torched more than 14,000 acres. Here's a look at planes trying to smother the flames that are moving in Maricopa County. Around 300 firefighters are working both in the air and on the ground. And at last report, the fire had no containment. Well, right now, the new Borealis train is on its first trip to Chicago after leaving St. Paul just minutes ago. Audrey Russo was there to bid it bon voyage.
Riding aboard the Borealis with nothing but the wind in my hair and a dream in my pocket, Chicago bound. Well, not yet, because the train is definitely not moving, but when it does move out of the station for the first time, it'll be yet another option for passengers hoping to get to Chicago from Minneapolis-St. Paul. 12 stops in not quite 8 hours, and you can see where it stops through Wisconsin, cutting through La Crosse and Milwaukee. Amtrak says the price starts around $41 one way, making it an $80 round trip ticket. They also say that there are discounts available for seniors, veterans, and children. Now, this train is basically an extension of the existing Hiawatha service, which operates about 7 trains a day between Milwaukee and Chicago, so Borealis now gets St. Paul into the mix. Representatives with Amtrak tell us that there was a lot of demand for this train.
About 250,000 people a year, we estimate, will use this service. That's 250,000 cars potentially, not on the highway.
And it's more than just Amtrak at the throttle here. We're told that this is a partnership between multiple states' departments of transportation, including Minnesota's.
So this has been a real collaborative effort because everybody identified the need, and now after negotiations and discussions and some tough conversations, we have a great service that begins today.
And looking at the schedule, it leaves every day out of St. Paul at 11:50, getting you to Chicago a little after 7. Back to you.
Audrey, thank you. And whether you're taking the train, driving, or taking to the skies, AAA says it will be the second busiest Memorial Day in decades. Experts anticipate nearly 44 million people to travel at least 50 miles. But most people will be driving with the busiest times Thursday and Friday night. AAA says the best time to leave will be before lunchtime on Thursday or after 7 on Friday. Well, in Minnesota, a regular gallon of gas is about $3.27. That's 3 cents cheaper than last month and down 22 cents from this time last year. Now, if you have a 16-gallon tank, expect to pay around $52 to fill it up.